Hello, my name is Hilary Regan, and I am the CEO and publisher of ATF Press, an Adelaide-based publisher in Australia. We've been publishing for close on 30 years, and we published a range of books, and we've also published books in different languages. Today we have a very special event. Today we have Justin Taylor talking about his latest book, A Short Life of Jean-Claude Colin, which has been published in 4 different languages, in English, in French, Italian and Spanish. Justin was born in Wellington, New Zealand in 1943. He was professed into the Society of Mary, the Marists, in 1963, and he was ordained a Catholic priest in 1966. He studied history at the University of Cambridge in England, where he graduated in 1972, and after teaching for several years at the Marist Seminary in New Zealand, he went to Jerusalem to study at the École Biblique. From 1988 to 2011, he taught at the École Biblique in the fields of New Testament and Christian origins, and was the vice director from 2007 to 2010. The École Biblique is a Dominican institution. He is now Emeritus Professor of New Testament. And from 2006 to 2011, he was co-chair of a research seminar in New Testament at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. 2008, he received a degree of divinity at the University of Cambridge. In 2011, he received the degree of Doctor of Sacred Theology, honoris causa, from the Pontifical University St. Thomas, the Angelicum in Rome, which is also a Dominican institution. He's author of several books and numerous articles, and he's now living and working in New Zealand again, in Auckland. He's the author of various publications, apart from the book on Jean-Claude Colin, Origins of Christianity, an Exploration, which he wrote with Etienne Audet, which was published with Liturgical Press and published in 1999. And then in 2001, Where Did Christianity Come From?, which is with Michael Glazier. Then in 2001 also, with Peters, Pythagorean and Essenes, Structural Parallels. 2007, As It Was Written, by Whiffenstock. 2018, he published with us, with ATF Press, Jean-Claude Colin, a reluctant founder, 1790 to 1875. That book is a mammoth book, which, including the preliminary pages, is 1,145 pages. At the end of 2021, he published A Short Life of Jean-Claude Colin, which is 96 pages, a significantly smaller book. And that book, as I say, was published in French, Spanish, English and Italian. And that book, Justin is about to speak to us about. So welcome, Justin. Thank you for bringing this book to us and the previous book and to the Society of Mary for their work in allowing you to do this work, and also for them coming to us with this book. Thank you, Justin, and you are most welcome.
My name is Justin Taylor, and Hilary has just introduced me. The original biography of the man in question is this. As you can see, it is rather a large tome, not quite as large as Hilary said. I think it's about 1,100 pages rather than 1,300. And I realized, of course, very quickly that we needed to provide something for people who were, with the best will in the world, were just not going to be able to tackle 1,100 pages. And then the other great need was translation. It had only just appeared when there were all sorts of demands for translations, particularly into French, but also into Spanish. And again, the idea of somebody translating all that in the main volume was rather unrealistic. So for all those reasons, I decided we needed a short version. And I have them here. Well, Hilary has just shown you the English one. There is also a version in French with the title Vie abrégée de Jean-Claude Colin, fondateur mariste. And there is one in Spanish as well, Breve Vida de Juan Claudio Colin, fundador marista. Who was Jean-Claude Colin? Well, he was a French priest who was born in France in 1790 and died in 1875. And he is best known as the man who founded one branch of what we call the Marist family. That is the branch of the Marist fathers. Another and better known branch, a larger, more numerous branch, are the Marist Brothers of the Schools, founded by Saint Marcelin Champagnat. There are also Marist sisters, and there are missionary sisters of the Society of Mary, and many groups of Marist laity in various countries. And all these people would be interested, I think, in knowing more about Jean-Claude Colin. Why is he interesting to anybody apart from the religious order that he founded? That's a very good question. And it's one in which, in fact, Rome, for the canonization process, which is underway, is very interested. Well, I can think of three sorts of reasons why I think that Jean-Claude Colin, or Father Colin, as we often call him, is interesting and indeed relevant to the church today, and even wider than the church. I think there are implications here beyond the boundaries of the Catholic Church. I'll just run through these three reasons. One is his historical relevance to the church, particularly in this part of the world, because of the order he founded. That order, the Society of Mary, were the first Catholic missionaries to come out to the Pacific. So Jean-Claude Colin is a founding figure for the church, the Catholic Church in New Zealand, where I happen to be, but also in a number of countries in the Pacific Islands, such as Tonga and Fiji, Samoa, Vanuatu, New Caledonia, and also Wallis and Futuna. He's of less direct relevance to Australia, where the church had other foundations. Then I think another reason why he is important and interesting is precisely his profile as what I called a reluctant founder. That's the subtitle of the large biography, and I think it sums up quite a lot about him. He was not the initiator of the Marist project, but when a catastrophe occurred in that initial group of people interested in founding a Society of Mary, when that occurred, Father Colin picked up the pieces and ran with the project and got it underway, and also gave it its rule. He was, however, reluctant to do so. He had no ambition to be a founder of anything at all. And when in later life, the Society of Mary insisted on calling him Father Founder, he used to say, well, no, God is the real founder, or he might say the Blessed Virgin, and he would even make fun of attempts to call him the founder. Now, I think that that is a very interesting characteristic and contrasts very strongly with a number of other would-be founders, particularly that we've got or recently had in the church, who are too ambitious perhaps to be founders and to be able to have works attributed to them, and in many cases have fallen from grace. And then there is his spiritual teaching, and in particular, teaching that he summed up in a kind of, not exactly a motto, but a byword, as it were, which was hidden and unknown in this world. It's not the motto of the Society of Mary, and the aim of Marists is not to hide themselves away, but this phrase encapsulated a whole spirituality for Father Colin, a spirituality based on his meditation on the hidden life of the Blessed Virgin, a hidden life which was nonetheless extremely influential. And he took that as a pattern of action for a religious group who would, in which the dominant mode of action, characteristic way of performing, was not imposing themselves or their views, deep respect for other people, even when other people's behavior or opinions were dead contrary to their own. And it is, I think, a way of acting which is eminently to be recommended today in the church.
And Justin, just one comment or question when you referred to the rule that Jean-Claude, when he was the reluctant founder, can you explain a little bit more about what you mean by the rule? What I understand it is the constitutions, or is it more than the constitutions?
No, it is really the constitutions. The Marist constitutions, which Father Colin composed, are more than just a sort of a daily timetable. They actually do lay down ways of going about things, and particularly this way of behavior, this modest, unassuming, but nevertheless gospel-oriented way of proceeding that I talked about a moment ago as hidden and unknown in this world.
Now, the Marist brothers, as you said early on, have been well known for having schools. The Marist fathers also had schools. How did that develop?
Oh, that was right from the beginning, when the first group of Marists, or Marist aspirants, shall we say, were trying to work out what they were going to be for in the church. They sent a letter to the then Pope Pius VII, in which they set out their aims. And those aims included education, and also included preaching what we used to call parish missions, and to be available also for missions away, the so-called foreign missions, if you like, which was fulfilled in the case of our society by the mission to Oceania.
And the mission to Oceania was fairly early on in the society, and that was one of the key in terms of New Zealand and other parts of the South Pacific. And the first bishop of New Zealand, as I understand it, was a Marist, and very prominent in the history of the New Zealand Catholic Church.
Well, now I just have to correct something you said there.
Okay.
Bishop Jean-Baptiste Pompallier had been in the original group of, or at least joined the original group of Marist aspirants, but he had been chosen to be the head of mission for the mission to Oceania, and had been ordained a bishop before anybody took vows. So when they first took their religious vows in 1836, Bishop Pompallier did not take vows. He was not a professed Marist, although he declared that he was heart and soul with the society. Didn't always work out like that in the aftermath. But the first missionary priests and brothers, so brothers as well as priests who came out to the Pacific, were professed Marists.
Okay. Now, Justin, just a point of clarification, I suppose. You were asked to do the original volume by the society, by the headquarters of the society in Rome, to write the official biography, as it were, that would be sort of used for frequent reference, both in the canonization process, but also in others who were studying the life of the founder, both within the society and outside of it. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
And when was that?
That I was first approached in 2010, but at that stage I was teaching on the faculty of the École Biblique in Jerusalem, and I realized I couldn't do this new work and continue with that. So I had to arrange to retire from the École, which I did in 2011, but I didn't get really going on the project until 2012. And it took me 5 years after that of getting a manuscript that I could forward in confidence to ATF Press.
And that 5 years of working, you were working in Rome, France?
I began in Rome.
Yeah.
I have to explain that what I was doing was telling the story contained in many volumes of collected documents. And the collection and edition of those documents had been the work of two Marist scholars in particular, Jean Coste, who was a Frenchman, and Gaston Lessard, who is still living, is a Canadian. And they had gone around all the archives, and they had photocopied and documents that were not in the Marist archives. And then it was all beautifully typed out and then printed with footnotes and introductions in a most elegant and exemplary way. So I did not have to do very much in the way of primary research. What I had to do was work my way through these documents and, as I said, tell the story that they contain in a way that people could read and follow.
And one other question, ATF Press has published a number of years before your mammoth volume, A Mission Too Far by a Marist father. Can you tell us a little bit how your volume differs from that volume by, the name escapes me?
Jan Snijders.
Jan Snijders.
Who died of, not so long ago. He was a Dutch Marist, and right. He himself had been a missionary for many years, and he wanted to tell the story of the first missionaries. And he, well, one big difference is that his focus was quite different from mine. He was telling the story of the missionaries and how the Marists came to be in the missions of Oceania. I was telling the story of a man who was the superior of the group and was responsible for sending them out. And also he takes the story, if I remember correctly, into the 1840s, but not beyond. And then he
hoped to do, he had intended to do other volumes, yeah.
He did, but he didn't have, I mean, he didn't have the health in the end. He was already a very elderly man.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. Yeah.
I differ with him on one or two points. I quote him quite frequently in my own work, and often agree with the opinions or the judgments that he puts forward.
Correct. Now, before we finish, where are the Marists today, Marist fathers in particular? How many would be in the society, and where would they be working? What type of work would they be doing?
If you just excuse me, I'll reach over and get the latest statistics in here. So as of the 1st of January, beginning of this year, there were, dear me, I'd have to add all that up. I think there are roughly 600 or 700 of us. There are 23 priests in Africa, 13 in South America, or Latin America would be a better way of putting it, 14 in the Philippines and in Thailand, 52 in Australia, 20 in Canada, 150 in Europe, 22 in Mexico, 88 in New Zealand, 118 in Oceania, and 62 in the United States of America.
Okay, and what type of work would?
Well,
schools would still be, there's some schools.
Yeah, schools have been prominent, of course, and other works too. We ran seminaries on behalf of diocesan bishops in various places, including the United States. We were still engaged in retreat work and parish missions, spiritual direction, and what you might call the spirituality ministry. And then, of course, there was the outreach into to missions ad gentes.
Okay. Well, thank you, Justin. Is there anything else you would like to say about the short volume? I know that it's a popular book in terms of no references, no bibliography, there's no bibliography as such, but it is a cut down version. Now, how long did that take you to do?
Oh, a few months. I retold the story briefly. That's how I went about it. And all the way at the very beginning of the book, I explained that anyone who wants to know more or wants to know my sources and on which I base my statements will need to look up the big volume. So that's why I spared the reader footnotes.
Okay. So we will just take a short break before you start off on the French.
Bonjour, je suis Justin Taylor, Père Justin Taylor. Je suis un père mariste de Nouvelle-Zélande et je me présente comme auteur de ce petit livre qui porte en français le titre Vie abrégée de Jean-Claude Colin, fondateur mariste. Le père Colin était français, un prêtre français, né en 1790 et est mort en 1875. Je l'appelle fondateur mariste. Je dois expliquer qu'il s'agit d'une branche de la famille mariste, famille religieuse, qui consiste de prêtres, des pères maristes, de frères enseignants, les frères maristes des écoles, fondés par Saint Marcellin Champagnat. Il y a aussi des sœurs maristes et il y a des sœurs missionnaires de la Société de Marie et des groupes de laïcs maristes partout dans le monde, on peut dire pratiquement. Le père Colin est évidemment d'intérêt à ceux et celles qui sont ses fils et ses filles spirituelles, mais une raison pourquoi j'ai rédigé ce livre, Vie abrégée de Jean-Claude Colin, c'était pour le rendre un peu accessible aussi à d'autres personnes. Je dois expliquer que c'est vraiment un abrégé de ce livre qui est la biographie complète, officielle, si on veut, du père Colin, et qui porte le titre en anglais, Jean-Claude Colin, Reluctant Founder. En français, on peut dire un fondateur malgré lui. Et justement pour pouvoir le présenter en français, aussi en espagnol et en italien, j'ai fait et en anglais, bien sûr, j'ai fait le petit livre que je viens de vous montrer. Je pense que le père Colin est d'un intérêt beaucoup plus large que la Société de Marie ou d'autres branches de la famille mariste, justement qu'il a un intérêt vrai pour l'Église et peut-être pour le monde d'aujourd'hui. Il y a son importance historique, évidemment, pour l'Église dans les parties du monde où les maristes sont présents, et notamment en Océanie, c'est-à-dire le Pacifique du Sud-Ouest, y compris la Nouvelle-Zélande, où je suis, aussi plusieurs îles, maintenant des nations indépendantes, pour la plupart des nations des îles du Pacifique, où l'Église catholique a été fondée par des missionnaires maristes. Je pense aussi que son profil, justement comme fondateur malgré lui, reluctant founder, est très intéressant parce qu'il y a un contraste tout à fait bienvenu avec d'autres attitudes qu'on a rencontrées dans l'Église, de ceux ou de celles qui veulent s'imposer. Le père Colin ne voulait pas s'imposer. Il n'était pas l'initiateur même du projet mariste. Il a sauvé, on peut dire, le projet mariste qui a été initié par un autre et qui était sur le bord de la catastrophe au moment où le père Colin est devenu le refondateur de la société. Et pendant sa vie, il était toujours très sûr que le vrai fondateur de la Société de Marie était Dieu lui-même, ou la Vierge Marie, ou les deux, Dieu et Marie. Il était très convaincu que de l'origine surnaturelle, céleste, si on veut, de la Société de Marie, et attribué la fondation en premier lieu à Dieu et à la Vierge. Et aussi sa doctrine spirituelle est d'un vrai intérêt aujourd'hui. Une doctrine spirituelle qui a été basée évidemment sur Marie, société de Marie, donc une imitation et même une sorte d'assimilation mystique à Marie. Marie, surtout, sous son aspect d'être caché mais efficace. Inconnu et caché dans l'Église était une phrase qui est venue très souvent sur ses lèvres. Ce n'était pas la devise de la Société de Marie, ce n'est pas l'objectif des maristes de se cacher quelque part, mais la phrase traduit une attitude spirituelle qui est modeste, une marche qui ne veut pas s'imposer et qui comprend, surtout cherche à comprendre la mentalité, l'attitude des autres, même et surtout peut-être quand cette attitude, les opinions, des actions même de l'autre sont contraires à ce que soi-même on préférerait. Et je pense que c'est une attitude, une marche, une approche qui doit nous servir très bien aujourd'hui dans l'Église. Les gens ne veulent plus une Église triomphante, une Église maîtresse, une Église qui donne des jugements et des règles et rien de plus. Et l'attitude spirituelle du Père Colin est tout au contraire de ça. Et pour cette raison, je pense que sa doctrine spirituelle, même sa personne, est d'un grand intérêt aujourd'hui.
Thank you, Justin. We will thank you very much.
Good. Thank you very much.
Be in touch. Thanks, Justin. Okay, bye-bye.